All right, everybody. So welcome back to another edition of this week's Corn Belt Umpires Association Clinic. One thing that a couple people have asked us to talk about is preseason preparation as well as general equipment and uniform stuff. So that's what we're going to be doing over the next 3 weeks. This week, we're going to be talking about what I would consider to be the most important piece of equipment that one person could have, which would be a mask. And so without further ado, we'll just kind of rock and roll through with the normal stuff. Please mute your microphone. If you got to eat, turn your camera off, stuff like that. We realize this is over most people's lunch breaks. If you have questions, feel free to chime in and ask. As you have them, there is no such thing as a stupid question. Actually, no, I lied. There is. It's the one that you don't ask that comes back to bite you in a game. So we encourage any and all questions. My contact information as well as Connor's contact information. Hopefully Connor will be joining us here relatively soon is below. If you have suggestions, questions, feel free to reach out to either of us and we'll work to get you an answer or plan a clinic around this. A lot of our clinics are done in response to suggestions from everyone that attends. That being said, I am not an expert by any means. I don't think anybody here would claim to be an expert. A lot of times these clinics are good for us to keep our nose in the rule book, make sure that we're applying the right stuff. And then also for me, I learn a lot better by teaching. So it's a great way to, reinforce what we have in the rule book. So we do these clinics once a week over the noon hour on Wednesdays. And as I said before, please let us know if you have any topics that you want to hear about. So I'm going to give this just as overview. We're going to talk about things to consider when buying a mask. I'm going to throw this disclaimer out here. The stuff that I say, the stuff that Dan says, and anybody else here that says anything about masks, this is not an endorsement of any piece of equipment by any means. You need to consider your personal situation in deciding what piece of equipment you buy. And no piece of equipment can prevent all injuries. And so just non-endorsement, we're going to talk about things that we consider when buying equipment. Things that I like about my mask, and just kind of a couple different options out there. One thing I was talking to somebody else about this kind of overview for this week's clinic. And, in South Dakota, we have such limited availability to try on, hard shell chest protectors and things like that. And I told one of the guys who's from the Twin Cities area that I envy the fact that they have a store up there that actually carries umpire equipment. And they carry the hard shells, they carry the soft shells, they carry a variety of masks and other pieces of equipment like that. We don't have that. And so a lot of times we're either buying what we can find locally or we're turning to online retailers where we're not able to, try stuff on. And so I've tried a lot of different pieces of equipment. I think my chest protector count that I've worn in games is up to 5. So, we got a lot of trial and error and we know what we like. And a lot of guys have some really good stuff to share. So we'll talk about kind of the history of the mask. Obviously in the top left corner here, we have arguably really the first umpire mask. And you can see the considerable improvement that's been made over the years. The second one from the left on the top is the Rawlings wrought iron, which was a staple in the 70s and 80s. And then we get to the Wilson Dynamite, Diamond IX3, Wilson Titanium, the All-Star Magnesium, and the Force 3 Defender. And I believe that's the version 2 mask. I don't think anybody's been able to update their stuff since they came out with a third version yet. So with that being said, there's a couple different camps that a mask design falls into. The first one is heavy, heavy, heavy. That basically means, if you're a hunter, you'd probably be able to understand this. A 20 gauge is going to kick almost as much as a 12 gauge will, because a 20 gauge is typically lighter than a 12 gauge shotgun. And a 12 gauge shotgun is heavier than a 20 gauge, and you have the weight to help absorb the recoil. The second theory is deflection angles and mask padding. And we'll talk about that. And there's a new mask that hit the market last year that really has taken the deflection angles to an extreme. And then the last one is the springs, which in the hockey style world was pioneered by the Wilson Shock FX, and a company called Force 3 Pro Gear, which was founded by Jason Klein, who was a minor league baseball umpire, has kind of picked up the ball with the springs. And I know we have a lot of attendees today that absolutely love their Force 3 mask, and I know they're willing and eager to share their thoughts on that mask and some other stuff related to that mask today. So first, we got to know what masks are made out of. You got aluminum, titanium, steel, and magnesium. Dan, Matt, Terry, anybody, if I'm missing something pro-con wise, let me know. The aluminum's lightweight, it's durable, and it's a good value. Cons, it dents, and it's tough to weld, so welds can break. The titanium is very, very lightweight. Cons, it's a softer metal, so it dents a lot easier. I've seen, guys with with titanium masks that, it looks like they've been through a battle. And titanium is very expensive. The steel, it's very, very affordable. It's heavy though, but it's relatively durable. The magnesium, it's a very, very lightweight mask. I put it in the same boat as a titanium mask. You can't really weld magnesium, and so it's got to be injection molded. And like the titanium as well, it's very expensive. Did I miss anything, Dan?
Sounds good.
So we'll talk about the modern mask. The way that I did this is I picked 6 masks. I picked the 5 most popular traditional masks on the market today. And then I included we'll talk about hockey style masks after that. So the first one is the Diamond IX3. This mask was originally designed for use by catchers, but it really wasn't popular, and they found a real niche market with umpires. I've used the Diamond IX3. It's got good vision, at least in my opinion. And I should add, this is all subjective. And you're going to hear a lot of very subjective statements, because what mask is the best is a very subjective topic. And so, is Dan shaking his head? No. So the Diamond IX3, it's a great starter mask. If someone comes to me and says, look, I'm looking for a good lightweight starter mask, that's usually the one that I'll point them to. That one, just as a price point, figures about $90. The next one here would be the Wilson Dynalite. That's I think $75 price point. Now, I know a lot of companies have revamped their pricing structure for this season, so I could be off a little bit. Another really good starter mask. It's heavier than the IX3. I personally use this one. It's got similar vision to the IX3. As far as your titanium goes, there's really 2 titanium masks on the market, and I wish anybody the best of luck trying to find the Nike titanium, because you can't find it. So Wilson makes a titanium mask. I don't know what their price point is right now on it. Super lightweight. I know a lot of guys that wear it. They love it. And I'm going to get to the All-Star and the Force 3 here, because I think that's where we can have a lot of discussion, because I would say from an objective standpoint, I believe that the All-Star FM 4000 magnesium and the Force 3 version 2 masks, and just the Force 3 mask in general, have completely revolutionized and brought a great discussion in mask design and mask safety. So I will tell you that I trust my brain to the All-Star FM 4000 Magnesium. It's this one right here. Clearly uses a lot of deflection angles and very, very thick padding. I'm going to let Dan kind of give an overview of the Force 3. I've used the Force 3 before. Subjectively, it wasn't comfortable for me. Couldn't get comfortable in it. But I know Dan has a lot of really good thoughts on the Force 3 mask, so I'll kind of turn that over to him right now.
Okay. He's wrong, of course. No, I'm just kidding. It really is personal. But what I can say about this mask, and I always tell, I've had catchers buy it through my advice about it. I've certainly sold a bunch through umpires. It weighs at least 40% more, probably closer to 60% more than the All-Star, for example. And it will take a while, 2 innings. For most umpires that have switched to it, they tell me that by the end of the first game, they didn't notice the weight difference. Now, if you got the version 1, you'd notice it and you'd keep dealing with it because your neck could be bent forward. That sucker weighed at least twice as much as this one here. So they've done a really good job to make this workable. And I think version 3 is supposed to be lighter still, but I'll defer. Jacob probably has more direct information. The real difference is right there. There are 3 different locations that carry a shock absorber. And one of the really important ones is right there on your chin, where your chin would make contact, where the pad would have to catch it. And there are literally 2 frames. There are 2 masks here. And just, point of pride, I've taken 98 miles an hour from the pitcher's hand to my nose. If I'd have my Wilson, I'm on my back, the mask would be off. There was no other way to displace the force of that. I've taken it just this past weekend at Nebraska Omaha. I took one off the hands right to the chin. Catcher jumps up, puts his arms out as if to catch me. I didn't shake my head. I didn't feel it. And I've worn Wilson. I've never worn the All-Star. I've worn a Diamond. I've dealt with virtually every mask that's on the market over the 30 years that I've been umpiring, and I simply cannot say enough about this mask. It kept me safe. But one thing I'll skip ahead a little bit. If you mix any mask with this hat, you're giving yourself 40 to 70% more protection, because the force into the mask will get dissipated over the plastic and not on your wool hat or not on your forehead or not on your actual dome. But if you combine this with a mask and you don't get the Force 3, I think you're getting closer to being in the position that I'm in with a wool hat and a Force 3 mask. It is heavier. I guarantee you, you'll notice a difference. A lot of us have customized. What I've got here are bell guard pads. The reason I wear these is primarily for where we work. These won't freeze. Whatever it is about the nature of this foam, it does not freeze. It's also guaranteed to not lose viscosity for 10 years. Most masks need their pads replaced at least every 4 years. And that's coming from a neurologist that works for the NCAA. So I'm a big fan of putting in custom pads. The Nike pads look great, but they're not as serviceable. They're not as workable as the Bell Guard. These do run about $300, and you usually got to wait at least a month, sometimes more, to get them from locations in Japan. If folks are interested in Bell Guard or Mizuno, let me know. I do have an agent. I have a guy that will expedite out of Los Angeles, and he moves things pretty quickly, but you do pay for that service. So if you're umpiring, professionally, or if you're doing as much work as Jake and I are, you might be interested in getting the very top of the line. And what I love about them is they're actually leather, and they'll last me, like I said, 10 years. Mix these together with a Force 3 and you're in really good shape. Also be careful if you're using a metal indicator and you keep it in your hand, you will take some of the paint off your mask, and it's a little difficult to get this repainted because it has to be sanded out, and it has to be, there's a special way that it's got to be put on so that it doesn't keep coming off. But I think of it as a badge of honor that I scraped the paint off the son of a gun. Jake, that's all I got on the Force 3.
Fantastic. I'm going to touch on 2 things that you said. One, yeah, I totally agree. The indicator metal, yeah, that's mine. I mean, the left side of my mask has been absolutely beat to death. And I think the one thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to just try to patch it for now, just to get through it. It's cosmetic. But one thing that I've started to do, and Dan, I actually stole this from you. When we were working last fall together, I noticed how you you utilized your indicator. And, I could explain it quite well, but it wouldn't do it justice. I think the way that you use your indicator is unique, and I totally stole it, and I love it.
Well, of course, it didn't originate with me. I've watched Terry Helget work. I think he's on this line. And there's a guy before us, Brandon Jackson. And if you ever get a chance to work with him, don't miss that game. He's an animal. He's just a remarkable umpire. And I'm not sure where he got it from. Probably one of the pro guys that we've had a chance to work with. But what he'll do is he'll indicate without looking at it. He'll indicate that a strike was it just happened, foul or called, and he puts it into the front pocket of his ball bag. It also fits real well in the pocket of a plate coat. I just did that on Saturday night while I was freezing my tail off. So I'll indicate and put it away, and then it's out of my hands. And then as the timing permits, I'll reach in, and a lot of times I don't even pull it out. If it's in the pocket, I'll just indicate the ball and leave it where it is. It makes me think the count rather than be looking at it. And by the way, a little secret: if you ever do have to look at your indicator, don't turn your head and look down. You're taking your eyes off the game. But put your hands, adjust your mask and I can show you with the gear. As you reach up, adjust your hat inside your mask, and then as your hand goes away, look at it and put it away. Presentation matters, and looking at your indicator is one of the ways that coaches will realize whether you're nervous or not, whether you're confident or not. If you can get that out of your mix, if you look at it once or twice an inning, that's okay. But any more than that, and you're uncertain of the count, I've also got mine notched so I can tell by holding it. Okay, I'm not at one strike. I'm not, and I know I've already had 2 pitches. Okay, my count's 0-2. There's ways you can get yourself. But you want to be thinking the game and thinking about the count is one way to keep yourself focused. But I've gotten rid of the indicator in my hand during play. If I got the mask, there's nothing between my hand and my mask. It makes it easier to shift. It makes it easier to get the mask off my hat. But yeah, like I said, I stole it from Brandon Jackson. And if there's anything I can pass on from him to you, it's good. It's a good thing.
I say I haven't. You were the first guy that I saw do it. I have not had the distinct pleasure of working with Terry, and I believe he is on this call. And I do hope to get to work with Terry at some point in the future. The one thing I will say, the All-Star does make an indicator that is pre-notched. I will say it is heavy compared to most indicators, but it took me all of 2 innings. And I mean, if I grab a plastic indicator, which I've had plastic indicators get smashed in my hand before, so that's why I don't use one. I mean, the plastic indicator is going back from the All-Star notched one. I mean, it's like a paperweight compared to that indicator's a paperweight, and I should have brought it because I ran out to my car between classes to go and get my mask, but I should have grabbed my indicator as well. So we're going to talk about pads here in a few minutes. We'll talk about the hockey style mask, which is, from an objective standpoint, it's going to have probably the most protection for the whole head. That's because, most of your head's not exposed. I have played around with the Cobalt skull cap, played around with that all of last spring. Love it. I know you got the Rawlings.
Correct. This is Easton. The first thing I'll say with a helmet is make sure that there's padding on the top. I believe the Rawlings came with no padding, and you will catch that plastic on the dome of your head. And even if you got a nice salad, it's not pleasant. So the first thing you got to look at is what is the pad made of that's going to be around your head. Russ has a helmet that's got, and he's on. I know he's on. Russ has one that's got a leather, and it's great in the cold weather. It actually it works really well. I found that that's too hot in the summer, so I don't care for that one. The Easton has an actual soft pad with a cloth cover, and it's working for me. I like it. They do also sell this at Dick's Sporting Goods. Not at every one of them, but I've found it in there. So if you want to go try it on, that's nice to do.
So to the discussion on hockey masks, I am definitely I started out with a traditional mask. And then once I started doing some higher level stuff, and I'd come back, I was wearing the hockey style. And, it's got great protection. It's got its pros and cons. But it wasn't for me. So I went back to the traditional style mask. I know there's an umpire in Sioux Falls who is a diehard hockey style guy, and he went in and he completely customized an all-star hockey style helmet. It's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. If you're on this call, you probably know who I'm talking about. If you get the chance to work with this umpire again, ask to see the inside of it. What he did and what he created was just unbelievable. At the end of the day, with masks, while I believe it is the most important piece of equipment that you have, there are a bunch of different factors that go into it. And you have, there's a lot of things that you have to consider. And so, as I said, you're buying something to protect your brain. So what I look for safety, I look for comfort, and I look to see how it fits. And I'm not necessarily saying how it looks. I know there's some out there that dislike the hockey style mask simply because of the look. That is, I think, so backwards. Wear what you feel most comfortable in, because at the end of the day, that's what you have to protect yourself. No mask can completely prevent concussions and head injuries, but to minimize risks, a good functional mask and good slot position can minimize your risks. Here's what I mean by functional. Pads are replaced according to manufacturer's specifications. That's number one. Number two, the mask is free of dents and broken welds. I've seen umpires out there with broken welds on their masks. It scares the crap out of me when I see that stuff. I'd ask everybody to go and look at their EOBs or EOCs for their health insurance. What's your deductible? Then I'd ask everybody to go on to a equipment retailer, whether it be Purchase Officials, Ump Tire, Honix, Jerry Davis, Hudson 51, and go see how much a new mask costs. It's a safety thing. So for me, like I said before, from a purely subjective perspective, the Force 3 wasn't comfortable for me. So I found something that was. I will, as soon as they hit the market with the version 3, which, as Dan alluded to a little bit ago, I'm probably going to know the weight a little bit better. 22.6 ounces is what I recall the weight of that one is. For reference, this one is 15.2 or 4. I mean, this is less than a pound. With the throat guard on it, I'd say it's 17 or 18 ounces. You don't notice it. I'll be trying it. I understand the science behind it. If you want to learn more about the Force 3, it's force3progear.com. That's their website. What they have done has completely revolutionized the game for umpires and catchers. I believe one of their stats they're really proud of is I think every Major League Baseball team has a catcher that is wearing their mask. And there's so many partnerships that they have. What they're doing with mask safety and things like that is second to none. Dan, any thoughts?
It makes me crazy. I sometimes will watch a catcher that's working in a mask that's not safe. And I actually helped a kid buy one for an amateur team in South St. Paul. Umpires, there's no excuse. It's not going to work. It's not going to dissipate correctly. We had a kid, dear Facebook friend of mine, was working a game in an old iron mask, and he was also wearing a chest protector that I had loaned him. It was an old model that they simply didn't make anymore. So I told him, I said, be careful with my vest. Well, they had to cut the vest off him because he was out cold for more than 2 minutes, taking a foul ball off the mask that he had. And that shut vest is no longer mine because, you know, I had it in a situation where I didn't protect the kid's head. I shouldn't have let him go on the field because he was working for a group that I worked for, and we would tease him, but I won't do that anymore. You can't overstate it. It's your brain, and we need you on the field, but we need you to get home after more. So please do upgrade your equipment. If there's anything going on with the welds, if there's any rusty spots, if there's anything where you're worried about the pads will cost you $30. You can get those literally overnighted from Umpatire, and like what Jake is telling you is we're not ever going to bang on one particular provider. They're all doing the same thing. I've become very fond of purchase officials because they do a lot of stuff with the college guys. Overnight's nothing, you know, and if you get something more than $100, you're not paying shipping. So the excuses for not having good equipment simply don't hold up when you're talking about a helmet or you're talking about your head.
Absolutely. No, this is, I've seen stuff where it's scary. And I know the new, you know, we have new umpires on here too. And I realize that the temptation to walk into a local retailer and buy the $20 Champ Pro mask is there. But, you know, you can get away with a lesser quality chest protector for a time, you know, shin guards, whatever. But the place that my advice, if I'm a new umpire, invest in a good quality mask. That cannot be stated enough. You know, and Dan, would you put I know you talked about the bell guard pads. Could you throw your contact information in the chat just in case anybody wants to reach out to you with questions or anything like that? You know, my stuff is, you know, my contacts on the email that gets this sent out. It's on the first or second or third slide of this presentation. Please do not hesitate to reach out. You know, I'd rather spend 5 minutes to share my knowledge, my experience, what I've talked about from other people with relation to equipment with you than to find out that, you know, you got stretchered off because you took one in the chin wearing equipment that, you know, I would know wouldn't be keeping you safe. So please, if you have any questions, it's so important that we're able to go home after a game and go to work the next day. I mean, I was a catcher. I've had many days where the next day I couldn't eat solid food. You know, Dan will attest. There's a shot that I took during a fall ball game wearing this. And if you ask the two guys when they came up and they said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, my arm hurts more than my face does." And it was that quintessential. I saw the whole thing. My strap was in front of my face, and the mask just fell off my face. And it landed on my arm, and it hurt my arm more than it hurt my face. And it was a shot. So, you know, we got to make sure that we go home at night. I was able to eat solid food the next day. So we'll move on. I've kind of alluded to this a couple times. Let's talk about pads. You know, I like to say masks can be fashionable. Which, you know, it's kind of true. Shouldn't be the real reason you buy a mask. You know, I'm going to be looking for safety features, but, you know, actually different set of mask pads for this bad boy, I think ran me $50. And so what I do now is, if you work with me, and I know that Mr. Sisk is on this call as well right now, we're wearing black. And he and I have worn black when it's 115 out. You're going to be hot either way. But my mask will match the side panel of the shirt I'm wearing. So if I'm wearing sky blue, put black pads in. Rotate my pads out. But I match my side panel. I think it just looks really cool. That's my own opinion. If you disagree with me, it's totally fine. There's really 5 different combinations of mask colors. that I would say, and Jesse, feel free to jump on and correct me if I'm wrong, but the 5 that I have listed here are probably the combination of frame and pad that within the South Dakota Umpires Association uniform guidelines would be appropriate, or I should say approved.
Yeah, we really typically don't drill down that far into color coordinating masks or mask pads. The combos you have there are more than sufficient. The nice part is, if you're going to get a mask designed specifically for an umpire, those are kind of the colors you're going to get anyway. There are still some guys that have some navy masks to go with their navy shirts. I think there's a couple of guys that may have like the red, white, and blue. Some of the Wilson schemes. They've done powder blue and pink, that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm trying to think of an umpire who regularly wears a mask that doesn't match one of those 5, and nothing's coming to mind.
I'd agree. I've seen the Navy masks a couple times. That's, for sure appropriate. I mean, obviously safety, and whatever you're most comfortable with. I put on here change pads according to manufacturer's recommendation. There are so many different mask pads on the market that are both stock and aftermarket. That for me to sit here and say, oh yeah, if you have Team Wendy's, you got to change them X number of years. If you got the All-Star Luck pads, you got to change them every so many years. If you got the Nikes, it's this many years. There's so many different manufacturers. You can't keep it all straight. So follow the manufacturers. My general rule of thumb is, this is my second season with these pads I have. After this season, I will be retiring those pads. Like the All-Star Luck pads, they don't get hard when it gets cold. There's some masks out there, or mask pads, I should say, out there that they do get extremely hard, especially during the cold. And there's some ways to mitigate that, but it's not fun when you got hard mask pads because of the cold, and we're up, in the Midwest. And so it's really important that we have good solid pads if, you're not using a spring mask like the Force 3 Defender.
And I'll jump in there quickly. I hate to say it because I'm a Force 3 Bobo. I'm completely on board for the story and the way the masks are made, but their pads are very hard and they freeze very, very, they harden up in what I don't think of as that cold of weather. So I won't wear the Force 3 pads. I rotate those out immediately. I've used Wilson in there, now I prefer the Bell Guard. But I don't think they've got their pad tech. Maybe it's different with the third version, but their pad tech is not kept up with the tech for the mask itself.
Say a couple other and mask padding is as subjective as the mask that you wear in a game. There's a bunch of different retailers out there that make aftermarket mask pads. Rawlings does. They have a set of leather pads. All-Star, Diamond makes aftermarket pads. I believe Honig's still does as well. Team Wendy's another company out there. Dan is Plus POS still making pads.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a buddy of mine that's got a pair of Plus POSs in his mask, and he loves them. And so just like finding a mask, finding good pads that you like, that feel comfortable on your face, and that you feel protected in, is very, very important. So I'm going to just reiterate again, find stuff that you feel comfortable in, find just comfort, safety, and fit. One thing that I will say is harnesses. If you don't carry a second harness in your bag, carry one. I change my harnesses out after a couple seasons. It just kind of depends on the wear and tear on them. But having a good harness that isn't too tight or tight in like the 4-strander, you're supposed to wear a little bit tighter than a traditional mask that utilizes, more deflection angles and things like that. But having a mask that has a good harness on it is also a must. Just keeping your mask in functional shape, shall we say. Throat guards. You don't wear a throat guard, I would ask you why. I will attest that this throat guard that I have here has gone and taken a real beating in its life. One thing that I will be doing is I will be putting a chop on this mask, which is basically where you take this little throat guard that's mounted to the mask off. I used to have an IX3 that I wore, put a chop on it, and the reason that I did this was because, for those of you that don't know me, I am 6'6", and where I was at, I would take most of my, if I was going to get hit by a foul ball, I'd take most of them in that drop down area, and it was just beating me up. So I went the chop route after talking to another very experienced umpire. Went that route, saw a dramatic difference. Really liked it. One thing that I will add before I let Dan give his 2 cents on throat guards is the way that you mount it is important, because if it's mounted like this, you're also going to have your chest protector, and it's going to be more rigid. I see a lot of umpires that they hang their throat guard here, and there's more give. And if you use a shorter, this is a 6-inch throat guard that I have. They make them in 4-inch, 3-inch, 4.5-inch. Find a size that you like. Find one that fits and covers. And there's tons of fit videos out there. I know Umpire's got an expansive library of how to fit your equipment. But mount it here on the bottom bar. It's the safest place to mount it, I think. I know some guys, they'll go in front of the attached throat guard. But yeah, I know most manufacturers recommend that they go to this bar right here, just like how I have it mounted. Dan?
There are actually major league guys, and I don't know who did it for him, but I've seen, and I show him a nameless Jeff Nelson, who had a Wilson mask that is actually bent so that this grill is straight. It doesn't come out sort of off his chin. It goes straight down. I've been advised very carefully, do not bend any mask. Don't change any of the directions that they're at. Like Jake was saying, they're bent the way that they are for a reason, and they need to have structural integrity. So they don't want you to change the shape. So what I've done, and when I started out, I was like, it doesn't look good. I've taken baseballs up through the area and I've had them hit off. And a lot of times on the Force 3, they have a strap that actually it'll leave your mask. It'll blow all the way off if it gets hit hard enough. And that's, again, by design. They want that thing to take the force and get it away from you, not into your throat. But I got hit last summer, and if that ball had gotten all the way to my neck, I don't know if I'm talking. I don't know if I'm certainly not umpiring anymore because it's coming right at me. So what I've done is, if you can see, I've shortened up the Velcro on these, just like Jake talked about, so that there's not a ton of play. I can't fold it under, for example. I like it to hang more or less still when I'm in my set. When I get down in my box, I want it to sit right on top of my chest protector. If I change the angle at all, if I make it longer, it can flop around, it can turn sideways. I don't want that to happen. I want it to sit straight down. So like Jake, I use the last truly horizontal post on my mask to catch it. And if I do anything, I'll even shorten this up some more. I'll change it up. I'm also a fan, when he talked about harnesses, generally, I don't tape, and I certainly don't just leave it out there. I don't know if the camera picks it up, but I sew down the strap where it's at the right spot. I get it to the tightness that I want, and then I lock it in place so that it can't move. It's super easy to undo that if I need to change it up, and I will need to change this. This does not fit with my helmet, for example. So I'm going to stretch this. And Ump Life is really a good idea for harnesses. I'm not going to sell for Ray Brownlee. He doesn't need me. But Ump Life stuff is really, it's become the standard. I think it's fair to say. He makes a hell of a product. The neoprene lasts for a lot longer than any of the stuff that I've had before. And he customizes it to put your name on it in some cases. I don't have it in front of me, but if I can get it before the end of the Zoom, I'll put contact for Ray on the chat. And it's not terribly expensive. I think it ends up being about $30 for the mask harness that he makes. He makes a chest protector harness for every protector that's on the market. And Ray's just good. It's a great story. Good Canadian fella. He's been umpire school, and he's a huge advocate for our union, if you will.
I use Ray's stuff. I haven't gotten to try the mask harness out. That's something on my list to try out, but he's got a chest protector one that's fantastic. I just looked at the guys that are on here, and I've worked with some of them, and I know that they're using Ray's stuff. Yeah, it's good stuff. I believe if to kind of look ahead, since we're wrapping up here, and what we'll do is we'll stop recording, and if you guys have a little bit more specific questions about masks, where you can get masks, we'll stop recording so you guys can ask those questions without fear of it going online. Next week, we're going to talk about uniforms and preseason preparation. I'm working with a couple of high schools in the Sioux Falls area. Next week, I have spring break, which apparently exists in law school, I guess. And so I will hopefully be at a couple different high school gyms over the next week, or I should say next week. I got 2 games on the calendar. I'm not holding my breath looking at the forecast for the location, I guess, for next week, because it looks like they're going to get smoked with another snowstorm. But in any sense, we're going to try to have a couple opportunities to get some preseason cage work in. So I would really encourage you to get into some cage work. If you're not in the Sioux Falls area, here's what you do. Email your local high school coach. Just say, looking to see some pitches before I start the season off. Are you going to have any time where you have live BP, which means inside a cage you have a pitcher, batter, catcher, and they do simulated games indoors. It's one of the ways that they can practice hitting in this part of the country. We do it all the time. I can tell you that at the college level, it is not a suggestion. It is an expectation that you're doing this stuff. Players have been looking at pitches since February. They've been seeing hit live pitching for 6 weeks by the time the high school season rolls around, especially in South Dakota. And if you haven't seen a pitch since July, that's 8 months that you haven't seen a pitch. That's not good. There's no worse feeling that I've ever had than going into the season and I hadn't seen any pitches before. I want to see it. I want to go get strikes. I want to be aggressive through the strike zone. But the only way to do that and to be really ready is to go and see pitches. So just email your local high school coach. Just say, hey, Mike, wondering when you have live pitching and hitting for your team. I'd love to come out and take some pitches to get ready. It also helps the players. When we got weird new rules, when the NFHS decides that we're going to modify the pitching rule again, and just it's a great way to go out and educate. If we got points of emphasis or something like that, we can talk to the teams about that and work to build a good rapport with local teams.
Hey, Jay Rooks.
Yeah, what's up?
Hey, bud. Say on March 23rd, you got an umpire training at 6 p.m. in Harrisburg, which I was planning on attend. Jesse has his umpiring clinic at 7 p.m. that night. Is there any way we could either pick a different night
Yeah.
or
As of right,
earlier?
as of right now, that has been postponed. I don't have a makeup date yet.
Okay.
So
If you could do something during the week versus Saturday, that'd be really awesome. Because I completely agree with you. As you've seen the last couple of years, I've gone in early with you, and it's a game changer. Yep.
sure is. So I'm going to stop the recording for now.